to share insights and ideas. And today we're exploring smart, sustainable design choices and their growing importance in the design process. This session marks the first talk of our 3-webinar series. Our expert speaker for today is DeCherney, an internal designer and the director of built environment at the Cradle to Cradle Product and Innovate Institute. Ren will walk us through how to set carbon goals and integrate them right from the concept phase. At the end of the session, there will be some time for questions. You can put your question in the Q&A part of the session, and I will read them out loud to Ren, and that's how you will do the questions at the end. Okay, that was it from my side. The floor is yours, Ren.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you for coming today. I'm excited to talk about carbon, and how it relates to flooring. Those of you who know me know that I love talking about flooring. I love talking about carbon in particular and carpet in particular. So we're going to do it all today. So let's get started. We're going to talk about the importance of flooring when it comes to getting to a net zero goal. So let's get started. How do we go from an idea of net zero to reality? As designers, I'm sure we know that the transition to a net zero world is not like an on-off switch, right? It is a pathway. And how do we go from the idea of it to an actual reality? When it comes to the built environment, we have literally tons of impact. The built environment, the building industry is responsible for about 50% of raw material use every year, 40% of material consumption to make our buildings, and that turns into about 37 to 40% of global carbon emissions every year, and 30% of waste by volume sent to the landfill. So we as an industry, we are really good at extracting raw materials, turning it into buildings, turning it into greenhouse gas emissions, and then turning it into waste. And as you can imagine, that is not a super sustainable solution. So we're going to talk about how do we disrupt this system? How do we disrupt this very linear mode of designing to create a net zero world? Let's talk about a little bit before we get started, the difference between operational emissions and embodied emissions. I know as a designer, I'm a licensed interior designer myself. We didn't learn a lot of this in design school, at least I did not. So now we're being asked to be experts in this. And so an operational emission, this is something when it comes to the operations of a building, like you see in the title. So, the heating, the cooling, the lighting, everything it takes to make a building function while people are in the space, that is an operational emission. And it can be reduced to zero over time, right? You can install a better HVAC system, you can use, renewable energy, you can install solar panels, like you can get on the pathway after the fact and reduce your operational emissions to zero over the lifespan of the building. I'm sure a lot of us are doing that right now, actually. But that means the embodied emissions, these are the emissions that it takes to create the building the first time. Those can only be reduced during design and construction. And that's where interior designers have a lot of impact. Embodied emissions, embodied carbon, will be responsible for almost half of new construction embodied carbon between now and 2050. So again, we as designers, we have literally tons of impact when it comes to reducing the embodied emissions of a project because we are the ones who are specifying products that go into that project. Globally, flooring accounts for 131 million tons of carbon emissions annually. Again, I said we have tons of impact. It was a pun. We do have tons of impact. And carpet and LVP contribute to about 90% of these emissions. So we're using a lot of these products in all of our projects. We have a lot of impact when it comes to what we choose, and that's why we're talking today. Now, I know we talk a lot about durability and the lifespan of carpet, and carpet is designed, generally speaking, to last between at least 10 to 15 years. That's a typical lifespan. I mean, we've all seen projects where the carpet has been along a lot longer than that, but typically that is the lifespan. However, I'm hearing more and more from folks in the market in real estate that the average commercial lease is going down, sometimes even as low as a year. So what happens when someone signs a new lease? Generally speaking, they renovate the space, which means a lot of times that carpet is coming back out and we're putting new carpet in. So again, this is where designers, interior designers especially, have a lot of impact in terms of the embodied carbon emissions of a project, because we are using products much more frequently through renovation projects, through these tenant improvement projects and fit outs, much more rapidly than we used to. And for that reason, by 2050, the interior design industry will have influence over almost a tenth of the world's carbon emissions. A tenth. That means you, as an interior designer, have a tremendous amount of power to make a positive impact, especially when it comes to carbon, especially when it comes to your projects. Now, the reason I am here to chat with you is because Cradle to Cradle Certified is based on this idea of cradle to cradle thinking and circular thinking. And what we are finding is that the pathway to net zero really runs through circularity. And to achieve net zero, we have to embrace circularity and circular thinking. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how those two things work together. So I mentioned that Cradle to Cradle Certified is based on the founding concept of circularity, which is this book, Cradle to Cradle. And it has a design philosophy as using waste as food, where everything becomes a resource for something else, which is a cradle to cradle way of thinking. Rather than linearly designing things in a linear way, we're thinking in a cradle to cradle function. And so how do we take this idea of circularity and turn it into something that you can use in your everyday practice to help you get to net zero? That's what our certification does. For those of you who are like, what is the circular economy? A circular economy or circularity is basically a fancy way of saying waste not, want not, right? It's a way of designing products and designing buildings so that they don't end up in the landfill. A circular economy is a system where materials never become waste and nature is regenerated. And so Cradle to Cradle Certified helps manufacturers design products and materials to be kept in circulation. So rather than designing them to just go to the landfill, they're designed to be reused in some way. Maybe it's through maintenance or refurbishment or recycling or composting even. There are many different ways to keep a product in circulation. And what we are finding is that this is a critical pathway to achieving net zero, especially when it comes to the built environment. So for example, using recycled instead of virgin materials can reduce carbon emissions by 40 to 70%. So if we're looking to reduce our embodied emissions in the built environment, using what we already have is a tremendous sustainability and carbon unlock. Just by doing that one thing, using what we already have, huge impact there. Specifically, a circular economy has the potential to reduce the carbon emissions from building materials by 38% by 2050. So those of us who are, again, counting our carbon and trying to get to that net zero, 38% is nothing to laugh at, because every little bit counts when we try to get to net zero. So again, this is through strategies like, sorry, I'll go back for just a second. When I say, the circular economy has the potential to do this is through strategies like, again, using reused materials, refurbishing things, using pieces of the building that still exist, that kind of thing. But more importantly, also designing with products that were designed with circularity in mind and have a circular pathway. So how does a certification help you do that work? How do you know if a product is designed for circularity, has low carbon, embodied carbon already? Like, how do you do that work? How does a certification help you? Cradle to Cradle Certified verifies the sustainability of products, the sustainability performance of products in 5 categories. And so we look at everything that a product is doing, and we verify that it is actually hitting targets in all of these different categories. So the first is material health. What are the chemicals that are going into the product And is it healthy for people and the planet? Clean air and climate protection, this is where we make sure that products are actually achieving reduction targets to achieve net zero energy. So we have a multi-tiered achievement level system, and at the bronze level of certification, they've hit a 5% reduction target in embodied carbon or emissions. At silver, it's 20%. At gold, it's 50%. And at platinum, it's 100% net zero energy and carbon. So our certification helps you find those products that are starting to lower their emissions, their embodied emissions. And that's what you really care about as a designer, right? Because you want to work with low carbon products to design a low carbon building. So clean air and climate protection, our bucket there, will help you do that work. Our product circularity bucket, this is going to tell you, is a product designed with circular thinking? Is there a take back program? Does it have recycled content? Does it have renewable content? Again, these are strategies to help you lower your embodied carbon footprint, but also design with products that have a process to not just end up at the landfill if you're doing a space earlier than the product is designed to be taken back. Or designed to be sort of the durability of the product, right? So our product circularity bucket will help you do that. Water and soil stewardship, this is related to our material health category, and we want to make sure that ecosystems are protected during the manufacturing process and no toxic chemicals are coming out of the factory. And then social fairness is our last category, and we verify that products are not being made with child or forced labor, which is unfortunately a problem in the built environment. But again, this will help you find products that are good for the planet and made by good people to help you do this work, right? Because we don't think that you can have really like a truly sustainable world if everybody is not being treated fairly. So when it comes to talking about this with clients, a lot of times I do find that there are clients who are very focused on carbon. We call it carbon tunnel vision, and all they want to do is talk about the numbers. They want to know what reduction targets we've hit. That's great. With a multi-attribute certification like Cradle to Cradle Certified, you have many different entry points to talk to a designer or talk to your project team or talk to an owner about their sustainability goals or just their values in general and connect it to the sustainability work that you're doing. So these are three different stories that I hear from clients and designers all the time. There are people who are really focused on material health. There are people who are really focused on carbon, and there are people who are going to tell you this is all too expensive. Why are we even talking about this? And the great news is that with this, like I said, with this multi-attribute certification, you have stories to connect all of these things together, and you can help them understand why it's important to work with products that are lower carbon footprint or have a circularity story so that you connect those dots for them, and you can accomplish many goals at one time, especially the part where it comes to lowering embodied carbon. So tell a story with or with your designers, with your team, with your owners, and help them understand the benefits, because that really does resonate with a lot of people. How is our certification helping you do this work specifically? Like telling a story is great, but how do we help you find these products, find the data that you need, in your workflows? We have introduced a fully digitized version of Cradle to Cradle Certified. It's our new era. Like Taylor Swift, we have a new era, and that is a fully digital era. And that means that we have, importantly, digitized the certification process, but importantly to you as a designer, we have fully digital outputs to help this certification contextualize this information and reach you where you're working. So on the first hand, we have a new visual scorecard that will show you everything a manufacturer has accomplished or achieved through our certification, to reach all of these different goals. And most importantly, under the clean air and climate protection bucket, you can click that, take a look and see what reduction targets they have made. So when you talk to your owner, or your project team that is saying, we're trying to hit these carbon goals, you can say, look, I found a product that has a lower embodied carbon footprint, and here's the reduction target they have met. And it's right here in our visual scorecard, and you can tell that story immediately. If you want to know more about like what all these terms mean, you can click on things and understand, like what does it mean when something says it's low VOC or, a reduction target has been achieved. And then you can use that talking point and just say it in a meeting. We've done that work for you. Also importantly, we have digitized all of this product information. So wherever you're going online to find products or understand sustainability, our product information flows automatically to those sites. Again, we really want to make sure that with a digital certification, we help you and show up where designers are working, how you're working, so that you can connect that information that you need about products to your project and just be part of your workflow. So wherever you're going to find information, we're going to show up there as well. Now, if you are working with a lot of different building certification schemes, because Cradle to Cradle certified is third-party verified and is multi-attribute, it gets a lot of points and a lot of credit in a lot of the different building certification schemes. So with the new version of LEED, we literally max out the number of points that you can get with your product specifications in the materials and resources credits. If you're working on well projects, again, we can help you get credit in those indoor air quality and as well as the material transparency credits. And again, because it's multi-attribute and third-party verified, you always get the second optimization credit. So if you're a designer who doesn't want to spend all your time counting points for LEED and well, Cradle to Cradle certified is a great way to not have to count as much because we have more points allotted with us. We're also recognized in the Living Building Challenge, Green Star in Australia, DGNB in Germany, and hopefully in the beginning of next year, we will be recognized in BREEAM. So if you're working in any of these different certification platforms or these building certification schemes, we can help you there. Now, when it comes to, here are some like best practices when it comes to taking this idea of net zero and getting it to reality. Getting to net zero requires a lot of data. And these are the most important things it comes to when you're looking for data and getting to net zero targets. You need data that is verified. You need the data that is measuring the impact that you care about, right? Like reduction targets. Like it's one thing to know what the carbon number is of a product. It's another thing to know that it is contextualized information and you know that that's a reduction target that they've hit, right? So you need this data to be usable for you. And we hope that through our certification, we can help do all of this for you, right? Find you verified, measurable impact data that is useful for you in your context. So when I talk to designers all over the world who are working on getting to net zero, here are the things that they tell me over and over actually work in practice. The first thing is to not be intimidated. I know, because I am a designer, that it can be intimidating, right? Like we're being asked to be experts in something that we sometimes didn't learn in practice. So, borrow from what others are doing, learn from what others are doing, talk to your friends in design, and ask them how they are sourcing products, how they are talking to clients about this, and borrow from what they're doing and learn from them. So just get started. Don't be intimidated. Every step you make has an impact. Always pick high impact spec sections, and that's where flooring really comes in. Every project has flooring and every project has a lot of it. So any reduction target you hit with specifying products that are lower embodied carbon will have literally, again, tons of impact because your projects have a lot of flooring. So always pick a high impact spec section to start with because when you make even just a small reduction in embodied carbon, it has a huge impact. Obviously, the more impact, the more reduction targets you hit, the more impact you have, but pick those high impact spec sections and get started. Use the databases that exist to help you prove the work that you need. And work with partners to achieve these targets. Ask manufacturers if they have a take back program. Again, if we use recycled content, if we can reduce our footprint by what did we see? 40 to 70%. So by working with manufacturers who can take their product back and turn it back into themselves, turn it back into carpet, turn it back into flooring, you're lowering the embodied footprint of your project and projects to come. That is incredible. That's a huge unlock, sustainability unlock. So again, work with these partners who have these take back programs and ask all the reps that you meet. What's your take back program? What does your end of life, options look like for your product? I was the designer that asked all of those questions. And guess what? A lot of them now have answers to that question. So keep asking. That's my other my call to action for all designers. Keep asking. The industry is absolutely listening and wants to partner with you, especially when it comes to these take back programs, especially when it comes to circularity and helping you get to that net zero goal. So last thing I've got for you is that the average interior designer has 40 times the spending power as an average consumer. Again, the impact that you have as a designer ripples beyond just a project wall throughout an entire supply chain and through an entire system, right? So if you're designing products that are lower embodied footprint, are designed to have a take back program and can be reused at the end of their first life, you are creating a circular system and you are having an amazing impact on reducing the overall negative impacts of the built environment, and you are creating a circular, healthy, lower carbon footprint built environment. And that is where I will end. That's my call to action. You've got this. And I want to know, are there any questions?
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Ren, for this interesting and very insightful presentation. I will now present you some questions.
Awesome.
What are the most common mistakes even experienced design teams make when it comes to carbon neutral ambitions?
I think the most common mistake is thinking you have to be perfect right away. You don't have to be perfect right away. I know the numbers can be intimidating, and I know that this is a public forum and that this will be on YouTube later, but I will admit that I cannot read an EPD. I find them scary. And so I just didn't know where to start, right, as a designer. And so I just didn't do anything, which is never good. So I would say the biggest mistake is not thinking that you can do it. You absolutely can. Ask manufacturers what if they have made embodied carbon, if they have lowered their embodied carbon. If they say yes, amazing. Ask them what that target that they have achieved is, and then ask them about their circular story and how you can work with them at the end of the first use of the product. But I would say just getting started is the best thing you can do, and it's every step you take matters. So that is really the biggest mistake, is thinking that you can't do it. You can.
Okay, that's a great way to go and to know. Another questions that came in the Q&A, where you showed us the digital platform of C2C. Where can we find the scorecards on the digital platform?
Love that. If you go to our website, c2ccertified.org, up at the top, there's a little button that says certified products, and you can find that. The new visual scorecard is launching in January, but we have a beta test version going right now. So know that there's a beta version right now, and then the more detailed one is coming in January. So great question. c2ccertified.org, you'll find all the products that you need and all the data, hopefully, that you need.
Another question that popped up: how can carbon targets influence creative decision making without limiting design freedom?
Oh, that's a great question. I think the great news is, I'll really date myself here. When I started in design back in my day, there weren't a lot of sustainable options for designers, especially in flooring, right? Like the lower embodied carbon products it was a lot of brown. It was kind of boring. But the good news is that there are so many options now when it comes to working with manufacturers who are actually doing the sustainability work, who are actually achieving reduction targets, who have take back programs, that your design doesn't have to be limited anymore. And I will say that when it comes to designing with recycled materials, with harvested materials, with with circular materials. I was just on a panel with a design team that has done a lot of circular projects, and he said, it's a different way of approaching design. It's not like you have a white box. You don't know what you're going to get when you start with a circular product. So he was like, For us, we find it a really exciting design challenge to think in a new way, to design circular in, design with products that already exist and can be reused and things like that. So it's just a different mindset, but hey, we're designers. That's what we do. We're hired by our clients to come up with exciting, beautiful solutions to their problems. I mean, otherwise they could, have AI do it, but that's not why we're hired. We're experts. So I would say it's just a different way of thinking and approaching design. But again, to date myself, if we can switch from AutoCAD to Revit and come out on top and know that we get a lot out of that process and using BIM, we can do this too. So it's just a different way of thinking, but designers are totally up to the task. And there's a ton of different, more sustainable products, people who are, again, having verified impacts that they're making available to you. And sometimes at the same price, which is like the majority of the time at the same price. So you don't have to sacrifice style, design, or price anymore. You can have it all. You can do it.
Okay, interesting. That's good that it already exists. And do you have the feeling that the designers fully consider all dimensions of sustainability when they choose a product, or are there some, particular aspects of sustainability that are often overlooked?
Oh, that's a great question. I think that I always encourage designers not to try to do all the things at once. Work with a certification that does all the things for you at once. There was a great there was a great interview with a guy in business and tech who talked about product or company values, and he said your values have to be something you bump into every day. So I always tell designers, pick something that you're really passionate about when it comes to sustainability. For me, it was material health, and if you're really passionate about it, you'll do it every day. You'll want to do it every day because you're passionate about it. You'll bump into it every day. And the good news is if you work with a multi-attribute certification, it then takes care of the rest for you, right? So I was working with material health, but the good news is I was using Cradle to Cradle Certified to do it, which meant that it was also verifying the ecosystem health and the social fairness and the product circularity. So I was able to do all of it at once. But I always tell designers, find the thing that resonates most with you authentically, because then you'll want to do it. You'll be able to talk about it with your clients passionately, and they'll understand your passion, and you'll want to do it, and you can get really good at it. But don't think you have to do everything all at once. Pick a thing that matters most to you and just go for it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for answering all the questions.
Yeah.
I think this webinar has come to an end. Thank you, Ren, for sharing this valuable and insightful perspective. And I want to give you some practical details. All details about today's talk, including access to the recording and the Q&A, will be sent to you by mail. Our next webinar will take place on the 27th of November, again focusing on carbon neutral architecture with a closer look at the role and impact of data. This will be the second talk in this three-part series. So thank you all for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you at our next session. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.